Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I've been a fuel delivery driver for the past 7 years, and honestly, I love my job. Started right after college when I realized my business degree wasn't doing much for me in this economy. My uncle, who owns a fuel delivery company, offered me a position, and I jumped at the opportunity. The pay is great, the hours are flexible, and most people are pretty understanding about the minor inconveniences that come with the job. Well, most people except for what happened yesterday. I was doing my regular delivery route to a gas station I've been servicing for years. It's one of those modern stations with the tank access lids right by the parking spots. Usually, when I need to make a delivery, I have to block all the parking spots in front of the building. It's just how the setup works. Most folks understand this, and I try to be as accommodating as possible. If there are cars parked, I wait patiently. During busy hours, I put out cones as spots become available to prevent new cars from parking until I can position my truck. So there I was, following my usual routine. I had my cones out and was waiting for the last car to leave so I could pull in. That's when this woman, in a shiny new Tesla, shows up. Now there were plenty of spots just 50 feet away, but apparently that was too far for Her Highness to walk. She gets out of her car, looks right at me, and moves my cone to park right in front of the door. I hopped out of my truck and went inside to talk to her. I politely explained that I needed to make a fuel delivery and asked if she could please move her car, pointing out that there were plenty of spots just down the way. Her response was anything but polite. She rudely told me to get bent and that I could wait until she was done. Her tone was so dismissive, like I was some peasant interrupting her royal duties. Well, two can play that game. I went back to my truck and pulled in behind her Tesla, leaving about 2 inches between my truck axles and her bumper. I set my brakes and started hooking up my hoses. Because of her brilliant parking job, I couldn't get into my ideal position, which meant I had to use my smaller 2-inch hose instead of my usual 3-inch one. I had barely started the fuel delivery when she came storming out of the store. She started yelling at me, demanding to know what I thought I was doing. She threatened to call the police for harassment if I didn't move my truck immediately, claiming she was in a hurry. I threw her own words back at her, telling her to get bent and that she could wait until I was done. When she demanded to know how long it would take, I explained that while it normally took about 45 minutes, because I had to use my smaller hose due to her parking job, it would now take about an hour and 15 minutes. She let out this screech that probably scared birds away in the next county. She stomped back to her car and started making her phone call. Sure enough, about 10 minutes later, 2 police officers showed up. The first officer asked what the problem was, and the woman immediately started ranting about how I was harassing her and deliberately blocking her car. The gas station clerk, who had been watching everything, came outside and explained to the officers that the woman had moved the safety cone and parked where she wasn't supposed to. The clerk defended me, saying I was just doing my job and that the woman had been nothing but rude and belligerent. The second officer told her she'd just have to wait until I finished my delivery. She tried pulling rank, demanding to know if they knew who she was. The first officer just coolly told her that she was someone who was going to have to wait, then bid her good day. The officers left and I made sure to take my sweet time. I checked and double-checked every gauge, wrote my paperwork with the most meticulous attention to detail, and even took a few minutes to clean my windshield. All in all, she waited an hour and a half. When I finally moved my truck, she was fuming. She jumped into her Tesla and zoomed around me like she was in a Formula One race. But karma wasn't done with her yet. When she peeled out onto the street, she didn't even look for oncoming traffic. This massive pickup truck with a heavy-duty cattle guard bumper came cruising along, and wham! Right into her driver's side. The sound of crunching metal and shattering glass was almost musical. Her precious Tesla spun around like a top before coming to rest on the sidewalk. The pickup truck? Not even a scratch on that cattle guard. When she stumbled out of her car, completely unharmed but absolutely shocked, She looked back at the gas station just in time to see me, doubled over with laughter. I could barely breathe, but it was worth the risk of an asthma attack. The pickup truck driver, this massive guy with a handlebar mustache, just got out, looked at his bumper, shrugged, and called the police. When the same two officers showed up, they could barely keep straight faces as they took her statement. Turns out running a stop sign and failing to yield right of way is a pretty expensive ticket, especially when you've just totaled your Tesla. After 3 tours in Afghanistan and losing my left leg below the knee from an improvised explosive device, all I wanted was to get home to see my family. My service dog, a German Shepherd, who's been with me for the past 2 years, helps me maintain my balance and assists with my post-traumatic stress disorder episodes. He's literally been my lifeline. The flight started normally enough. I had my usual aisle seat, which I always book because it's easier to maneuver with my prosthetic. My dog was quietly lying at my feet, not bothering anyone. We were about 30 minutes into the flight when I heard someone making a commotion a few rows behind me. I heard Karen frantically calling for a flight attendant. When one came over, Karen immediately started complaining about there being a dog on the plane. She claimed she was highly allergic and warned that she was going to have an attack if something wasn't done immediately. I turned around to see a middle-aged woman frantically waving her arms, her face getting redder by the second. The flight attendant, bless her patience, tried to handle the situation professionally. She explained that my dog was a service animal noted on the passenger manifest and legally permitted on all flights. Karen didn't care about any of that. She kept yelling about how she'd paid good money for her ticket and was entitled to a pet-free space, demanding that the dog be removed immediately. The flight attendant calmly explained that removing a service animal was against federal law, offering instead to reseat Karen in a different section of the plane. This only made Karen more agitated. She started claiming that while she'd never had allergies before, she could feel them coming on right at that moment. At this point, she started rummaging through her bag and pulled out a bag of pretzels. To everyone's horror, she actually started throwing them toward my dog, trying to lure him away. I had to speak up then, asking her to stop throwing food at my service dog. I explained that he was trained to ignore distractions and that what she was doing counted as harassment. Karen just scoffed and started ranting about her rights as an American citizen. The situation was getting out of hand, and I could see other passengers recording the incident on their phones. The flight attendants huddled together briefly before one approached me. She offered to move me and my service dog to first class, mentioning they had an empty seat available. Before I could even respond, Karen jumped up from her seat screaming in outrage. She demanded to know why I was being rewarded while she, the victim, was being ignored. She insisted that she should be the one getting upgraded. The flight attendant tried to calm her down, asking her to remain seated for everyone's comfort and safety. That's when she completely lost it. She lunged forward and grabbed the flight attendant's hair, screaming incoherently. Several passengers jumped up to help restrain her, and the pilot announced we needed to make an emergency landing. We ended up grounded at the nearest airport, where law enforcement was waiting. They escorted Karen off the plane in handcuffs while she screamed about discrimination and threatened to sue everyone. The other passengers applauded as she was removed. The airline pressed charges for assault, and I later learned she was placed on their no-fly list. The other passengers on the flight, including several lawyers, gave me their contact information as witnesses in case she tried to pursue any legal action against me or the airline. We were delayed for about 2 hours total, but the airline provided all passengers with food vouchers and future flight credits for the inconvenience. They also honored my first-class upgrade for the remainder of the journey, and my dog got extra treats from the crew members who couldn't stop apologizing for the whole ordeal. One of the passengers recognized Karen from their workplace and told me she was supposed to be flying to an important business conference. Instead, she spent the night in jail and lost her job when the videos of her meltdown went viral. My ex-husband and I had what I thought was a perfect marriage for 8 years. We met at university, dated for 2 years, and tied the knot in a beautiful beachside ceremony in Sydney. He was a sales executive, which meant he traveled frequently for work. I supported his career, managed our home, and worked as a high school teacher. The cracks started showing when I noticed changes in his behavior. More business trips than usual, secretive phone calls, and a password suddenly appearing on his phone. Being trusting, or naive, as I now realize, I dismissed these red flags until one day I accidentally discovered messages on his laptop that he'd forgotten to close. My world crumbled. There weren't just one or two affairs. There were 5 women across different countries. The pain was unbearable, but I needed answers. I reached out to each woman, trying to piece together the elaborate web of lies he'd spun. 4 of them were absolutely devastated when they learned the truth. They shared their stories, apologized profusely, and helped me construct a timeline of his deception. We even formed a sort of support group, helping each other heal from the betrayal. But then there was her, the woman from Ireland. When I first reached out to her, introducing myself as her boyfriend's wife and explaining that I was trying to understand what had happened, her response was shocking. She immediately called me a controlling witch, claiming my ex-husband had told her all about me. When I tried to calmly ask about when their relationship had started, she attacked me further, calling me frigid and fat, suggesting that was why he had strayed. I attempted to reason with her, explaining that we were both victims of his lies, but she wouldn't hear it. Instead, she boasted about being younger and prettier than me, claiming she knew how to keep a man happy, and that I had driven him away with my supposed neediness and suffocating behavior. According to her, everything was my fault. The audacity of this woman was astounding. While I was dealing with divorce proceedings and trying to rebuild my life, her words kept echoing in my head. She hadn't just been deceived, she'd actively chosen to be cruel. During my healing process, I threw myself into my hobbies, one of which was watching Australian MasterChef. While browsing her social media, yes, I'll admit to some light stalking, I noticed she was absolutely obsessed with the show. Her entire Twitter feed was dedicated to it, with multiple posts daily discussing the contestants and challenges. That's when I realized something interesting. Australian MasterChef aired months before it reached Ireland. She would have to wait almost half a year to watch the new season, and she was always posting about avoiding spoilers. The perfect opportunity for petty revenge presented itself. I waited until the finale aired in Australia, took clear screenshots of the winning dish, the winner, and the runner-up. Then I tweeted at her, excitedly announcing the winner and describing the winning dish in detail, complete with the runner-up's name and the hashtag MasterChefAU. The next morning, I woke up to several angry DMs from her, calling me every name under the sun. But I wasn't done. I set a reminder in my phone for the following year's finale. True to my plan, exactly 1 year later, I did it again. I posted another detailed tweet about the finale, describing the winner's dish and the judges' reactions, while also mentioning how close the runner-up had come to winning. This time, she didn't just send angry messages. She posted a long rant about bitter ex-wives and evil spoiler trolls before setting her account to private. But I had one final twist planned. I created a new account and followed her. Once she accepted my follow request, I sent her a friendly message, introducing myself as an Australian fan and offering to provide updates about the new season as it aired. She enthusiastically accepted my offer, clearly excited about getting insider information. I waited until she got invested in my updates about the current season, sharing fake spoilers about eliminations and challenges. She'd get into heated discussions with other fans, confidently arguing about what was going to happen, only to be completely wrong when the episodes finally aired in Ireland. After a month of this, I revealed my true identity with a final message, reminding her of how she'd called me a frigid, controlling witch, and hoped she had enjoyed my spoilers as much as I'd enjoyed her lovely messages about me. She deleted her entire Twitter account the next day. My husband and I had spent years saving up to buy our dream home, a beautiful house backing up to a wooded area. We finally managed to purchase it 2 years ago, and everything was perfect until about 3 months ago when things started getting weird with our neighbor. This guy owned our property years ago before selling it, and he still owns the wooded area behind our house. He uses a gravel driveway with right-of-way access that runs alongside our property to get to his land. Back when he owned our house, he had installed water and power lines running from our property to his wooded area. We didn't think much of it since the lines were buried and weren't causing any issues. That all changed when he started building a house on his property. One day, I came home from work to find a massive power pole smack in the middle of our yard. I called out to my husband, asking if he knew anything about this power pole. He was confused, asking what pole I was talking about. I had to tell him about the one that had suddenly appeared in our yard. We immediately contacted the power company, and their engineer admitted they messed up. Apparently, our neighbor had told them he still owned our property, and they didn't bother to verify his claim. They promised to remove the pole and wouldn't supply him power until they found an alternative solution. Then came the water situation. The neighbor approached us one day about using our water. He explained that he needed to test some pipes on his property and asked if he could use the water line he had installed years ago just once. My husband told him that would be fine, but warned him that if our bill was higher than usual, we would bill him for the difference. The neighbor readily agreed, saying that was completely fair. 2 months later, our water bill was through the roof. When we confronted him about it, he got defensive. He denied using our water at all and suggested we probably just had a leak somewhere. But we knew better. My husband had noticed a brand new hose attached to the spigot connecting to our water line, and their construction site was always suspiciously muddy even when there hadn't been any rain. We did the math. We were missing about 20,000 gallons of water. If we had a leak that big, our yard would have been a swamp. My husband decided enough was enough and cut off the water line leading to the neighbor's property. Suddenly, the very next day, a water tank appeared at their construction site. What a coincidence, right? Things escalated when several unmarked trucks showed up on our property, inspecting some damage from their construction work. My husband went to talk to the workers, thinking they were checking the water lines. He explained to them about the 20,000 gallons of water we had unaccounted for, saying he wasn't sure if it was on our property or going somewhere else. The next morning at 5 a.m., yes, 5 a.m., we got a text from the neighbor. In it, he claimed his workers had told him we accused him of stealing water. He threatened to sue us for character defamation and demanded a written apology immediately. This guy installs an illegal power pole on our property, lies to the power company about ownership, clearly uses our water without permission, and then threatens to sue us. We decided to take action. We hired a surveyor to mark our property lines clearly and got a plumber to inspect all our water lines. The plumber found that our neighbor had actually installed an illegal water meter bypass when he owned the property, which explained how he was able to steal water without it being detected by the main meter. When we presented this evidence to him, along with detailed documentation of our water usage patterns and photos of his construction site's suspicious moisture levels, he suddenly became very quiet about that lawsuit. The power company not only removed the pole but also filed a report about his false property claims. We installed security cameras around our property and had our lawyer send him a cease and desist letter regarding any future unauthorized use of our utilities. Now he has to pay for proper water and power lines to be installed legally on his own property, which costs significantly more than if he'd just done things the right way from the start. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.